The year was 1863. Abraham Lincoln was president. Strife ruled. The nation was at war with itself. The landscape, by any visionary standard, was bleak and dreary. The nation seemed to have lost its bearing and its very soul. Being thankful under these conditions was seemingly impossible. The nation urgently needed to mend its fraying fabric. Sounds sort of reminiscent of what we're going through right now. Under these dire conditions, Lincoln issued a proclamation establishing the last Thursday of November as a national holiday, as Thanksgiving. His intent was to coalesce a nation of diverse cultures and individuals into a cohesive whole by remembering and honoring the origin of its birth. That is a profound vision for a leader in a country that was fighting. Now, this is 2017. America and Americans will be celebrating its 154th Thanksgiving. This holiday didn't exist. Now, there were variations of harvest festivals in Canada. The French Canadians, the settlers, and the native Canadians came together and shared meals. And, aside from all the obviously colonial sort of stuff that was going on, they actually came together and supported each other in across the table, sharing food, breaking bread, community. Americans did the same thing. But it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln had a vision and said, I want to put this moment on the map, the calendar map, an intention to bring a country together in Thanksgiving. Now, I want to point out a couple other examples. A bunch of our community is in Egypt right now, and when I was traveling in Egypt, there was while I knew this truth was the truth, I hadn't experienced it. But you're traveling through Egypt, going through the parks or one of the temples or something, and all of a sudden, or you're in one of the markets, over the loudspeakers, this call to prayer happens. It's a profound experience for those of us in the Western culture to be in a community like that, into an area like that, and everyone stops to pray. They stop to say thank you, and they do that 5 times a day. They do that at dawn, I wrote it down, I got it wrong the first day. Dawn, midday, afternoon, sunset, and night. A whole culture, and billions of people stop, the devout ones anyhow, they stop, they lay out their mat, they go to a mosque, they find somewhere private or in public, and they pray, and they direct their mind and their thoughts to devotion, to God, to Allah, and to gratitude. That is a profound way of being in the world. When I was in New York, there was, there's Muslims everywhere, and in the city, and it's such a sort of a mosaic of cultures coming together. When I first moved there, it was sort of surprising to me to be there was this one particular moment I remember, at a hot dog stand, and the vendor was a Muslim, and he finished serving this customer, and then he had to shut down for a moment, pulled out his mat, kneeled beside even if it was in the winter, he still did the same thing, kneeled beside his hot dog cart and prayed. Got up, rolled up his carpet, and gone on about business. But he was changed by having spent that moment in prayer. I was changed by witnessing it. I'm not Muslim. I'm not going to pray 5 times a day, or wasn't at that moment. But my world was shifted by bearing witness. Now, years later, I went to seminary, I did a bunch of things, got all those degrees and all those things that I did, and then started working at the seminary that I went to in New York. And in the sort of front corner area, there was the registrar, the administrator, and me, director of operations, doing things that I'm doing here. And I didn't know what was going on, but the registrar, she was a non-Muslim, she was Jewish, she was a New Yorker, a hardcore New Yorker, you know what I'm talking about. And she had set her timer on her phone to go off 5 times a day, at the same times that the Muslim prayer calls went. And every once in a while, the chime would go off, and midday, she would clicking away at the computer, and then she'd press save, because, she's not a dummy. And then she would pause. And I don't know what she was praying, or if she was praying, or what she was doing, but she was going from the franticness and the phone calls and all of that, and pause. And took a moment to be grateful, took a moment to pray maybe, or took a moment to just not be busy. And maybe that's enough, just to pause from the mania, to pause from the sort of grip of to-do lists. And she did that all through the day as our work day. And I didn't know, but eventually, you sort of, when you're working in close circles like that, this would happen, and then eventually she would stop, and then I would sometimes pause, because I could hear the alarm go off. Oh, that's a pause time. Okay, I'm just going to pause too. I'm going to join her. And then before I knew it, the other person, the third person in the little group, we all started pausing. We all had our own spiritual practice. We all had our own reason for pausing. We all had our own experience of that moment. But she started it in the good way. She made a choice, she made a decision to be grateful. And then the ripples of that experience for herself, which was in a way a selfish experience, selfish choice, not in the bad sense, but in a self-care choice. The ripples moved into me and moved over to this person. And then when we had conversations on the phones and things, those moments of pause have their continuing effects. And now here I am, 15 years, talking about it. So the drip, or the drop of a pebble, the drop of a choice pebble, continues to reverberate. And then it was reinforced to me through the going to Egypt. And now when the people this past year in the past few years talk about Muslims and in the news and all that sort of thing, I don't have the same reaction. Because I know Muslims in a different way. I know the devoutness, I know that experience. And so it's just a piece of a filter. So those are 3 examples of bringing our attention to spiritual practice and then making a choice for gratitude, making a choice to slow down and focus and taking some measure of grace and bringing that into our day. Some measure, whatever that is for you, some small amount of breath into your body. There's a practice at the church I went to in New York. We would put our hands on our chest and say, I am here now. If you feel like doing that, just take a breath into your body. I am here now. And I still do that, and sometimes I just do that, and I don't even know that I'm doing it, but it's like that timer going off and saying, pause. Be present now with the people that you're in front of. It's a profound practice. Just very simple. And I'm not telling or saying, I'm certainly not telling you, but I'm not saying that you have to do any of those things. I'm not saying you have to pause in your day or do a practice or a spiritual practice. I'm not espousing anything in particular. I'm just sharing information. And I know some of you say, well, I'm too busy for that anyhow. I'm running a business. I've got 20 employees. I've got 3 kids or 6 kids, or I'm way too busy, or I'm single and I don't. Oh, yeah, if you're single, you have time. So that's not it, unless you have 3 cats and a backlog of Netflix that you need to sort of binge on. I'm just saying, I'm calling myself out on that one. If I could have cats in my building, I would have 3 cats, probably. I'm not a dog. I'm not a dog person. But we all could spend time. We all have a little bit of time to pause. Now, to all of us, and I'm going to include myself in this comment, to all of us who say we don't have time, I will say this. If you're too busy to pray, then you're busier than God intended for you to be. If you're too busy to meditate, to sit quietly, to commune with something other than your to-do list or your iPhone or Netflix, then you're busier than you should be. If you have time for Facebook, you have time to pray. If you have time for Facebook, you have time to meditate. If you have time to Instagram a photo of the tacos you're eating at lunch, Beverly, and me, and Monica, when you know we're the three taco eaters at CSL. If you have time to Instagram your lunch, a photo of your lunch, you have time to say thank you. You have time to pause and thank you and say thank you to the person who made those tacos. You have time to pause and thank the person who's cleaning the table after you leave. You have time to pause and say thank you for the very fact that you have food on your table, for the very fact that you have the ability to buy food and eat food and then digest it. There are people who can't even eat regular food. They have special diets and, gluten-free here. By the way, the service is gluten-free, just in case anyone's worried about that. You have time. Well, I don't know where that came from. But sometimes these inspirations just show up. But we have time. We have time. Now, David White says this. This isn't a commercial, but he is coming here on December 8th, and you can buy your tickets at registration. David White, for those of you who don't know him, is a local poet, mystic, teacher, profound speaker. He has this to say about gratitude. Gratitude is not a passive response to something we have been given. Gratitude arises from paying attention. Gratitude arises from being awake in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. Gratitude is not necessarily something that is shown after an event. It is a deep state of attention that shows we understand and are equal to the gifted nature of life. Yes, Wu is right. Gratitude is the understanding that many millions of things come together and live together and mesh together and breathe together in order for us to even take one more breath of air. That the underlying gift of life and incarnation as a living, participating human being is a privilege, and that we are miraculously a part of something, not of nothing. We are miraculously part of something, not of nothing. Thanksgiving occurs, he says, when our personal sense of presence meets and beholds another's presence. Sounds a lot like namaste. Namaste with the attitude of gratitude, as they say. Now, what if each of us made a choice, made a new choice, made a more consistent choice? This isn't, you don't need to be in shape. You don't need to be a certain size or a certain color or a certain age or a certain anything. This isn't a difficult thing to do, except it's difficult. We are in this world, and we're certainly in a culture right now that seems very ungrateful. We talk about it in this teaching, the sort of super consciousness, the race consciousness. The race consciousness of our nation is not so grateful these days. So it is up to us as individuals in our communities, in our families, in our homes, and when we walk out into the street, to take a moment and pause and say, I see you, and I'm grateful for you. You don't have to say that out loud because that might freak people out when you're at Walmart, or wherever you go. Watson Kennedy, my favorite store in the city. But to really take a moment and breathe, I am here now, you are here now, and I'm grateful for this exchange. It can be that simple. Now, what if we thought our thoughts from a new place, from a place of gratitude instead of a place of not enoughness? We have this default in our world of not enoughness. Either we're not enough, or there's not enough, or they're not enough, or it's not enough. We live in that sort of culture. And we, those of us, well, we're born into that, so that's our default setting sometimes. That's why it takes conscious choice. That's why it takes coming to community on a Sunday or a Wednesday or whenever you find people that you gather with. It takes a conscious effort to be intentionally grateful, to experience the intentional gratitude that fosters more. The attitude of not enoughness is like that. It's like a fist. There's no giving and there's no receiving in that kind of hand. But gratitude. Now, what can you give with open hands? What can you receive with open hands? What can you receive with open arms? What can you give? One of my great favorite experiences here is the hugs that we get from this gentleman here. That's a profound teaching. He's trained every single one of you who's ever had a hug from him to be present for his hugs. You hug on this side, and then you end up hugging heart-to-heart hugs. That is a profound teaching, a profound gift you've given to us. Thank you. So I just had to pause there. You inspired me. So gratitude, I mean, there's a reason why we call this Thanksgiving and not Thanksgiving. Right? You can write that one down. You can Facebook that if you want. Gratitude gratitude with expectation is not gratitude. That's a business transaction. If you're doing something and saying thank you and expecting someone to say something back, like whatever they want, whatever you expect them to say, and is different for all of us, then that's not really gratitude. The gratitude must be given freely with no strings attached. It's just giving. What you receive is beyond anything that you would actually ask for. And that's why in our spiritual mind treatment, at some point, there was only 3 steps to the spiritual mind treatment. It ended at the declaration. At some point, Reverend Kathy Ann shared it a while ago, they added thanksgiving and release as 2 more steps. It's nice to know that you recognize God. It's nice to know your oneness with God. It's nice to be able to declare something, but then where does that leave you? It leaves you, and I declare, and leaves you arms akimbo and whatever that is. But the real power, in my mind, comes from saying, thank you. I release without expectation. The real power, that the juice that adds to our declaration and our prayer comes from really being grateful. Joel Goldsmith says it like this: gratitude is not related to an expectancy of what we may receive tomorrow. Gratitude is the sharing or expressing of joy for the good that already exists. Now, when we say thank you in our prayers, it's not thank you for what you're going to give me. It's thank you for the truth that I know, for the truth that I am being, for the truth that I see, and the truth that is present. Thank you. That is profound, to stand in that truth and say thank you and let it go. I guarantee you that the practice of intentional gratitude in your life, in your daily life, in your daily moment-to-moment life, will open you up to more than you could possibly know, to open you up to more creativity, to more love, to more fun, to more success, to more sobriety, to more peace, more authentic selfness in the world. And that is what's going to attract to you more and like-minded, like this community. The story of how I got here, just as an example of that, I was ready to leave New York. My minister from New York said she was out here teaching in a ministerial development course with Reverend Kathy Ann. And Reverend Kathy Ann said, we're looking for a person and we're looking for some staff. And then my minister said, oh, Patric, I know you're coming out here in 2 weeks, because I was coming to visit. You're coming out here in 2 weeks. Can I? This is texting, by the way. Or maybe it's this. I don't know. But at that time it was this, because I wasn't very good at texting. And should I introduce you? So I said, sure, introduce me. So that began that conversation. We don't know when we're open and we declare, we don't necessarily know the exact thing that's going to come, but something's going to come to support you in your soul's fulfillment. Something's going to show up from across the country and start a conversation and start the ball rolling so that from that moment to this moment, here I am. Thousands of miles away, two people who didn't know each other met and started a conversation and introduced me to people who I didn't know. And all of a sudden, I know these amazing people, and I get some great hugs, and I get to be in community, and I get to speak, and I get to serve, and I get to do all the things that is my call to do. That's how it works. You open yourself to receive with open hands, with open heart, with open arms, and more of what your soul's calling forward shows up. Thanksgiving plus prayer equals peace. Gratitude plus spiritual practice equals peace. Getting over yourself, that's just me speaking, and stillness equals peace. Giving of yourself and getting right with God brings more grace and ease into your life. And how many times have we heard people say, oh, I want grace and ease, I want grace and ease. Well, guess what? You got a part to play in that. Intentional gratitude is a key ingredient in that. Being of service, practicing humility, brings heaven right here, right now. Scripture also says, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all shall be added unto you. In our words, we would say, seek ye first the consciousness of love, the consciousness of heaven, the consciousness of gratitude, the consciousness, the kingdom of gratitude, and all else will be revealed as you. You're not getting something, you're not going somewhere to experience it. That is available right now, in this moment, even in a transition time. That's why I wanted to point that out. It's not about the new space. There's not a new person that's going to save us. There's not a new something that's going to be the thing. No. If we can't be happy now, what makes us think we're going to be happy in the next place? If we can't be grateful for what we have now, what makes us think we're going to be grateful for what comes next, for the more? No, this is the place. This is the time. And this is the work. And it's fun, mostly. Now, I have some homework for you. See, even though Kathy Ann's away, I'm still going to give you homework. Your homework assignment this week is, dun, 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 when you say thank you to someone, mean it. And it's not even for this week. It's for this holiday season. Let's just extend it out, because this can be a stressful time. We can come up against families and the people rushing to get the special deals on that Xbox and the new phone and all those things, and it gets very aggressive and it gets very sort of hectic, and it can take us out of ourselves because we want to get into that thing and get that thing or have that experience or be right at the dinner table. But maybe we can be different in those situations. Maybe we can be different in those situations. So when you see someone and they pass you the potatoes, say thank you, but mean it. You know, who here has ever said thank you and didn't really mean it? Okay, good. We know what that feels like. We know what it feels like to receive that kind of thank you. We know what it feels like to say that kind of thank you. Now, I had a husband, my first husband. We're together. Why are you laughing? That wasn't funny. Yes, it was. I'm going to say first husband because I'm going to assume there's going to be a second one. I'm going to hold that vision. If other people can have 5 husbands, I can have 2. So, you know, work. I'm just saying, and I'm going to get in so much trouble, but that's okay. I don't care. I'm going to have a husband. No. Anyhow, the The first husband, we'll go back before I embarrassed myself. He was from Savannah, Georgia. Now, I'm from Canada. I'm from British Columbia and moved to Toronto, and I didn't know Southerners. I didn't know Southern humor and all of that. So, and his family's been in the South forever, and I would go down the first visit, and they would say, "Bless you." And then they'd say, "Bless." Then you hear, "Bless you." It's like, well, I'm being blessed all over the place. But I was informed after that all those bless yous were not necessarily blessings. We know that, and I hear that, and the thank you is not dissimilar from bless you, except the you is right, but the other word is interchangeable between thank you, bless you, and you know what the other one is. So we can say thank you. We can be authentic. Then the guy cuts us off, or the girl cuts us off, or the woman cuts us off in the freeway, and we say thank you. Or we say thanks. Or we say thank you. No, thank you. I heard that over there. Someone liked that one over on that side. Really, the words are the same. They're spelled the same. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know, all the various things. I'm not going to do any hand movements. The intention is the point. The intention is the point. To be able to stand in front of someone and say, thank you. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you for the kindness or for you just being present in my life. Thank you. That's all your homework is. It's not, you don't have to write a paper, but just do it and mean it. Very simple. Now, I'm not saying you have to write a prayer or do a poem or do a sonnet or do something big and dramatic and give a person a bouquet of flowers. It's as simple as being present and offering your thanks and your presence to them. So take a moment, make a choice this holiday season for thanks and for giving. Make a choice to slow down and feel the gratitude. I am here now. If you want to imagine the bell going off, the call to prayer going off. Because I told you about it now, so now it's a part of your consciousness. You can choose that. And it's not about a religion, it's just about a pause. And take a moment to feel the gratitude that is, as Gary and I were talking about earlier, as close to you as your breath. Feel the gratitude. And say thank you to someone for something. And then mean it when you say it. Thank you. Enough said. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. So in lieu of a traditional prayer, I'm going to do a prayer poem while the choir is coming up, and Joel will start with music. So I offer these words. They are a prayer in poem form. Think on these things. When the relationship has grown too small for the love that you carry in your heart, when the life has become constrained and confining for the expanse that lay within and beyond you, when the words you use are clipped like the wings of a caged bird, when the eyes you see through are clouded and gray, and the ears you hear with are muted and hollow, and the taste of art has left your lips, when you think you have nothing left to give, when you think the promise has been broken and soiled, think on these things. Think beyond what you know. Think beyond the words you comprehend. Think past thought itself. Think the kinds of thought prayers that go unworded, the kinds of thought prayers that need no answer, the kinds of thought prayers that need only to be lived and ingested and surrendered and sung through and spoken aloud. Think on these things. Think on these things. Think the truth about yourself. The truth about yourself. Think of the possibilities of life. Think of the limitlessness that lies in the heart and mind of God. Think a thought of prayer and a thought of praise for life itself, for breath itself. Think a thought of gratitude for the very ability to have a thought. Think on that. And then think again. Allow the thought of love to think you. Allow the thought of God to think itself as you, and let that thought have its way with you. Let it have its thunderous and delicious and glorious way with your very being in this world. Let love think you, and then think again. Let God think you, and then think again. Think on these things. Think the smile into being. Think the dream into reality. Think the opulence of your essence into the real world. Think aloud when you things that you've kept to yourself. There is no time better than this time, so reclaim your time. There is no voice better than your voice, so lift your voice. There is no word better than your word, so speak or write or dance or build or sculpt, but thank your word. Thank your voice. Thank your life. Think on these things when you think of yourself. Think on these things when you think of God. Think on these things when you think in quiet, when you think aloud, when you think in song, and when you think in love. When you think, period, think on these things. Think of yourself in the same light as light itself. Think of yourself as gratitude would think you. Think of yourself as love would think you. Think of yourself and then let go. Think of yourself, say thank you, and let it go. Think on these things and say thank you. And together we say, and so it is.